My sister thought she could bully me into giving up my home. She thought 22 people could storm my property uninvited, treat it like a free holiday resort, and rewrite my entire life story. But she completely miscalculated, because what I did to her next didn't just ruin her weekend, it completely dismantled her reputation, turned the entire family against each other, and left her standing in my driveway in absolute disgrace. It all started on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. I had just moved into my new coastal cottage in Cornwall. This wasn't a gift, it was a sanctuary I spent 15 years working 70-hour weeks to pay for. I was standing in my kitchen when the phone rang. It was Fiona, my older sister, the self-appointed dictator of our family. She didn't say hello. She didn't ask how the move went. She just spoke with the aggressive rush of motorway traffic roaring in the background. "Right, we're 2 hours out down the M4, she barked. "I've got the whole lot with me. Mark, his brothers, the kids, and the cousins from Birmingham. 22 of us in total. Make sure the immersion heater is on because we'll want proper hot water the second we arrive." I froze. 22 people, 2 hours away, no warning, no polite request, just a tactical deployment. When I told her the house wasn't ready and that I didn't have the space or food for an army, she just laughed that dismissive, entitled laugh that had controlled my entire childhood. She told me not to be precious, said the kids had sleeping bags, and then she dropped the line that made my blood run cold. She reminded me that she was the one who sent me the link to the property listing, which in her mind made her practically a co-owner in spirit. Before I could even answer, she told me to put the kettle on and hung up. By 5 o'clock, the invasion fleet arrived. A massive Land Rover Defender and 3 other cars rolled aggressively down my narrow lane. The front door didn't just open, it was breached. Muddy wellies trampled my hallway. Tesco bags and heavy coolers were dumped against my walls. Fiona walked right past me without making eye contact, handed her car keys to her teenage son, and told him to take the master bedroom upstairs with the ensuite. She looked at me and casually said I wouldn't mind moving to the tiny box room downstairs because I was used to smaller spaces anyway. Within 3 hours, I was completely erased from my own property deed. I wasn't the homeowner, I was the resident caretaker who came with the lease. What happened next split our entire family completely down the middle, and half of them still refuse to speak to me to this day. Before I reveal the brutal, calculated way I handled this invasion, if you love gripping, high-stakes British drama stories, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now so you never miss another episode. The true humiliation happened that evening over dinner. The house smelled of cheap takeaway fish and chips, and vinegar grease was splattered across my table. Fiona sat at the head of the table, poured herself a massive glass of white wine, and addressed the entire room. She loudly announced that I only managed the deposit on this place because of our grandfather's inheritance money, declaring that the cottage was a family asset for everyone to enjoy. The cousins nodded and clapped, completely accepting her lie. The truth was, grandfather's legacy gave everyone £5,000 years ago. The rest of this house was paid for by years of brutal corporate shifts and missed holidays. When I quietly told her across the table that this was my home and not a family legacy, she just smirked, waved her fork, and told me to loosen up and stop ruining the night with my ridiculous rules. Later that night, the disrespect turned into actual property damage. I walked upstairs and caught 2 of the cousins' children, using a thick black permanent marker to scribble doodles directly onto my freshly painted walls. I told them to stop immediately in a voice like iron, but they just laughed in my face and ran off. When Fiona walked up and saw the black marks bleeding into the plaster, she just sighed, told me it was just a bit of ink, and told me not to make a massive scene over something so minor. That was the exact moment something inside me crystallized. To her, my hard work was just a free canvas for her family's carelessness. I didn't shout, I didn't argue. Shouting makes you noisy and predictable, and I wanted to be dangerous. I walked straight down to my study, the only room with a lock they hadn't broken yet, and opened my notebook. I sat in the dark while the coastal storm rattled the windows, and I precisely documented every single infraction, every trespass, and every stolen boundary. I pulled out the legal copy of my land registry deed and the local council occupancy guidelines. If they wanted to treat my home like an unregulated holiday let, I was going to treat them like unauthorized tenants. The next morning, the reckoning arrived. The kitchen was crowded, and the entire family was gathered around the island, loudly demanding to know when breakfast would be served. I walked in, fully dressed in a sharp blazer, carrying my thick leather legal folder and my mobile phone. I didn't wait for the kettle to boil. I slammed the folder flat onto the marble worktop with a heavy echoing thud that instantly silenced the room. I looked at the 22 people staring at me and told them flatly that breakfast was canceled, to pack their bags, and that they had exactly 2 hours to clear the property. Fiona sneered, asking what kind of mental episode I was having, and told me I couldn't turn family out, onto the street, in the middle of Cornwall. In response, I took out my phone and pressed play on a voice recording. Fiona's own brisk, entitled voice filled the kitchen, playing back the phone call, where she bragged about taking my master bedroom and treating my house like a public utility. I looked her dead in the eye and told the room that this was an uninvited occupation of a private residence. I informed them that the property was legally licensed for a maximum of 4 people under local regulations. I handed out short-term occupancy agreements I had printed overnight, stating that anyone remaining past noon would be legally signing a contract to pay a £200 daily maintenance fee, or they could leave immediately. I also let them know that their cars were currently blocking a private agricultural access lane, and the local traffic warden had already been notified and was on his way. The silence in that kitchen was absolute. Mark looked down at his feet, completely red-faced with shame, while Fiona's face twisted into a dark, venomous rage. She hissed at me, calling me an absolute traitor after everything the family had done for me over the years. I leaned across the counter and told her that what she called support was just tolerating me when I was small and compliant, and now that I was standing on my own ground, she simply couldn't handle the truth. Within minutes, her unified front completely collapsed. The sharp sound of suitcases being aggressively zipped shut echoed from upstairs. The cousins started arguing with each other in the corridor, shouting that they should have just booked a Premier Inn in the first place, because the whole situation was deeply embarrassing. By 2 o'clock that afternoon, the convoy of cars backed down my gravel driveway in total disgrace, their tires splashing through the puddles as they slunk away over the hill. Fiona lingered the longest, glaring at me through her car window as if her stare alone could undo the humiliation. But her empire of lies was completely finished. I stood on the porch, arms crossed, watching the lane empty out until there was nothing left but the sound of the rising wind and the crashing tide. I walked back inside, turned the heavy brass key in my front door, and finally felt the weight lift. Cutting ties with them cost me their approval, but it gave me back my life. Now that you've heard exactly how the reckoning went down, I need to ask you a serious question, and I want you to be completely honest. If your own family showed up on your doorstep, completely uninvited, and tried to take over the house you spent your entire life saving for, would you hand over the keys just to keep the peace, or would you throw them out on the street? Did I go too far by printing out contracts and calling the warden, or did my sister get exactly what she deserved for crossing the line? Drop your thoughts in the comments section below. I read every single one. And if you think I did the right thing by protecting my space, please share this video with someone else who needs to hear it.